As healthcare professionals, we may not get the opportunity to hear clearly from somebody who's living with a condition how it feels for them to be within the consultation. We know what we're trying to achieve, we know what our goals are, we know what our agenda is. So I think it's so fantastic that we have the opportunity today to be able to hear from somebody who is living with diabetes, type 1 diabetes, and hear from him some insights and give us some valuable information that we can learn about working in partnership. So we caught up with the award-winning Daniel Newman, somebody who's actually been involved in developing things like the NICE guidance on technology for people living with type 1 diabetes. He was a lay committee member. And we asked him for his insights, for his advice about learning to advocate for yourself within consultations and healthcare settings. And, for the first thing we asked him, what does it mean to advocate for yourself? And this is what he told us. I think it's quite difficult for some people to speak up in a healthcare setting. What's the influence, do you think, of somebody's personality? If you're somebody who doesn't normally fulfill that type of role where you speak up for yourself, do you think advocating for yourself is something that can be learnt?
So when somebody says to me that I need to advocate for myself as a patient, my understanding of that has changed over the years. So if I go back maybe many years ago, I never understood what the term advocate meant. And it's only over the years I now understand what that means. So advocacy for me means showing up for myself in an appointment where I can go into the appointment, the conversation is taking place. But if something is said that I don't necessarily agree with, I feel comfortable speaking up. Or if I go into the appointment knowing that I need something that I believe will help my health, I can then speak up for myself and my needs and actually what I want from the help from my healthcare team. And so advocating for yourself really means just showing up for yourself, being prepared to speak about what you need as somebody living with diabetes in a healthcare setting or perhaps in other settings, but really saying, actually, no, this is what I need. Or advocating for yourself can be why asking the question, well, why are we doing it this way? Why are we doing it that way? Why are we doing what? And just asking why. So then you're more informed and knowledgeable about what's happening, and you're not just, you could find yourself perhaps going with the flow of other people making decisions for you, but you don't really know what's going on. And then you're not informed. And knowledge equals power, then it equals better decisions. And then you can have conversations about what's going on. And you walk away being knowledgeable and you feel a confidence within yourself. And advocating for yourself also takes into account preparing for your appointments as well. So if there's something in particular that you want, whether it be a piece of diabetes technology, have you done the research and looking at the NICE guidelines? If you don't know what the NICE guidelines are, then go and find what they are, or look at patient organisations' websites. If it's about diabetes technology, see what's available to you, how you access that. And so, advocating for yourself has so many different elements to it, but it's really about empowering yourself to have conversations, and so you get the outcomes that you want when it comes to your health.
And what about when you're advocating for yourself and it's something like a hard target, whether we're talking about blood pressure, whether we're talking about blood glucose levels, whether we're talking about the use of technology? What about in those circumstances? How would you go about suggesting alternatives or Is there something that you can advise people how they might agree and work in partnership with a healthcare professional to agree those what we call hard targets?
Yeah, I think one that really comes to mind, particularly when it advocating for yourself and agreeing blood glucose targets, is there was a point where I was meeting my diabetes consultant in a meeting, and he he spoke to me about my blood glucose levels, and he wanted my targets to be. I must caveat this: that I'm not a healthcare professional, so this isn't healthcare medical advice. But he wanted my levels to be between 4 and 7, and he wanted to be that for that to be my overall target. And in the time leading up to this appointment from the last one, and for I think for quite a few years living with diabetes, that was my target, and I was just aiming for perfection. My quality of life wasn't what I wanted it to be. I was feeling disappointed. It took its mental toll on me. And actually, what made me feel better was having my targets between 4 millimoles and 10 millimoles. And that's what worked for me. And when we had a conversation about it, he was like, oh, well, it's not between 4 and 7. And I said, well, the reason why it's not between 4 and 7 is I've noticed that when I've aimed for that, I've felt really down. I've aimed for perfection and it's affected me. I'm not enjoying it's having a wider impact on the way that I feel and how I'm living. And I feel comfortable and I feel happier with my targets being between 4 millimoles and 10 millimoles. Now, I've left it quite broad, but for me, that was about advocating for myself because I didn't have necessarily the data to back up how I was feeling, but I had my lived experience to say, this is how I'm feeling. And I don't want to feel this way when living with the condition. And for me, that's about being aware of what's going on and what's right for you, but then also having that confidence to speak in that setting and say, no, actually, I want to do it this way.
And what's the best way to prepare for a consultation, for a meeting with your healthcare team?
Yeah, so when it comes to preparing appointments, I think it's good to be clear on perhaps what you want to discuss. So I know I mentioned there might be 5 topics, but maybe you have 1 or 2 or 3, but being clear on that. So it could be that you want to talk about access to technology. Maybe you want access to a glucose monitoring sensor or an insulin pump. Well, then it starts with you doing the research just to say in Google, how do I access an insulin pump, or how do I get access to an insulin pump? And then looking at the NICE guidelines when they come up, or other guidelines if you don't meet certain criteria, and then perhaps formulating one or having 1 or 2 questions that you want to ask your healthcare team about that particular. I'm using technology as an example. It could also be reviewing your data over the past kind of couple of weeks or perhaps longer, and looking for any trends that you've noticed, or there could be something in particular that you're struggling with. Perhaps it could be nighttime hypos that you're really worried about, and being prepared to have a conversation about that. And perhaps if you have some ideas what it could be, then bringing those to the conversation as well and having a discussion about it. So there's so many different things that you can do to prepare, and it doesn't have to be like this grand elaborate thing. It can be small. As I mentioned, you could have a piece of paper and just write down a couple of things. And if there is something that, again, you're in the appointment, you might forget, always see, or can I email you if I think of something afterwards?